Good morning. Today I'm setting off for a steady workout. I'm gonna do 4 by 10 minutes at my steady effort with 1 minute jog in between. So right now I'm just doing my warm-up. Just to contextualize a little bit, I'm in my base phase of training, and that means different things for different people. For me, it's a lot to do with I'm not racing for the next couple of months, and there's more of an emphasis on building volume, building mileage, than there is on intensity. So I'm not going to be sharpening the stick right now. I'm going to be building the engine. And I decided that this base period, I would have a once a week workout at steady effort, with the thought being that I can get just a little bit more aerobic adaptation than if I were to do only easy running for this entire block. I want to have a little bit less of a gap between me and the harder days once I leave this base training phase and start to sharpen for a race. It'll make those threshold days and VO2 workouts a little bit more approachable. Steady effort is another thing that means different things to different people. I think generally everyone will agree that steady effort is harder than an easy day and easier than, say, like a tempo or a threshold day. But how much harder? That's gonna depend on who you're asking. And for me, I've been using my LT1, my first lactate threshold. There are two, and that's to say there are two different turn points where if you gradually increase the pace that you run at, lactate concentration in the blood will correlate with that pace or effort. So I don't have a lactate meter, and I'm trying to run at LT1, and I've never been to a lab, so I don't even know where my lactate turn points are. And they change all the time as you train. So even if I did know, I'd have to be continually measuring on workouts like these to know where it's at. So I'm gonna do a crazy thing and use heart rate to approximate my LT1. And heart rate's gotten a bad rap in the last couple of years in response to the kind of zone 2 craze where supposedly people were claiming that running at zone 2 solves everything. I don't think people were really saying that, but you know, people that really want you to use perceived effort, which is important too, but people that really want you to rely on that and less on your watch love to shit on heart rate. And I think it's an unnecessary overcorrection because heart rate is empirical. It's a measure of your body. RPE is very subjective. Like, are you able to remain honest with yourself? Can you be consistent in how you rate the difficulty of one workout to the next? How does that change over time? You know, so I think you should use RPE, but heart rate is something that you can balance that against. Heart rate does correlate with lactate, and it does correlate with effort. It does correlate with pace. And there's not a perfect relationship between these things, but it's a proxy. And proxies are useful when you're missing the real deal, which in this case, you know, our kind of best modern measure of effort these days is probably lactate. And so what am I gonna do? I'm gonna do 4 by 10 minutes, kind of right at the middle of my zone 3. And that sounds like, how could that possibly be a good approximation for LT1? Yeah, good question. I think my experience training and racing has led me to believe that that's a decent approximation for marathon effort, which then hopefully is a decent approximation for LT1. And I think it's not a big deal if it's imperfect. My goal is just not to overshoot my LT1. So if I train a little bit easier than that, I'm not too worried about it. But if I'm bumping right up against the upper limit of my zone 3, you know, maybe I'm kind of in tempo effort at that point and I'm not really getting the stimulus that I'm aiming for. So try to be right in the middle of that zone 3 and hopefully I'll run fast. All right, there's a warm-up jog done, 10 minutes. Now I'm gonna do a few drills and strides just to get the legs turning over and make the steady pace feel a little bit more accessible and natural, even though it's not that much drastically faster than easy pace, but it'll get there. And then I'm gonna hop into some 10-minute reps, so we'll see how it goes trying to film these drills and strides. Oh, I need a tripod. Get into first rep. Now I've got the watch set up to watch heart rate, so you can see it coming up, and I'll probably sit in the sort of 150s during these reps, so it might get harder for me to talk, and also I want the pace to be good. That's the key thing with these workouts. You don't want to have the effort not mapping to a fast pace, because these adaptations you get from training are highly specific. Okay, I need to slow it down a little bit. They're highly specific. So if, you know, because of heat or fatigue or soreness or something, you're always running hard but not running fast, then you're not doing a very good job at training your endurance, which is to say, you're not doing a very good job at teaching your body to endure faster paces for longer while staving off fatigue. So that's what this session is all about. Here's the first lap done. Feeling pretty good so far. It says I'm running 4:33 per kilometer, which I think is about 720, 730 mile pace. And that's definitely a far cry off from 4:15 per kilometer, which is 6:50 pace, which is my goal marathon pace. But I've got all the way to the end of the year to make that happen. And I think between this kind of like seeding of those paces now during my base period and a spring season that's focused on the 5K and raising my top end, I think that pace is going to feel a lot easier and more accessible by the time I get to the fall and I'm sharpening for that marathon and trying to stretch out those paces. And I'm getting into rep 2 now. And on top of that, I think my zone 3, and especially kind of the middle of my zone 3, is probably a little bit easier than LT1, true LT1. And I say that based on like average heart rates while I'm racing. So I probably have a little bit of wiggle room there. And then there's just the magic of race day, you know, which tends to propel you a little bit more than you expect. But this is a little bit hard to talk through, so just gonna focus in now.
You know there's no disguise. Watch you started. Found my spirit rising. Fire's left my eyes. You know there's no disguise. Watch you started.
All right, here's the end of lap 2, 4:37 per K, so slowed down a little bit, but that was a correction because I saw my heart rate was a little closer to the upper bound of my zone 3 than I like it to be for LT1, and part of that's probably just a little bit of excitement with the camera, wanting to have some decent splits for the video, but I think I'm dialing it in now and should have a good workout. I feel great. I don't know if the caffeine's hitting right or it's the reduced volume since I had to back off due to a niggle last week, but legs feel super light and fresh. I'm gonna flip around, get the other angle of the road, balance things out. There's lap 3, 4:30 per K. Picked it up a little bit, but I think that was a little bit too hard effort-wise, so I'm gonna try to reel this one in and the workout in the right intensity. I'm also turning around again because the niggle in my heel, I feel like it's barking a little bit more on this angle of the road, so I like things to be even, but got to do what feels right. Managing this is definitely priority number 1. So, all right, gonna recover for another 10 seconds. And then we're off.
So far away that I can make it. You never gave enough, but still I'll take it. Never loved someone so much, so faded, so faded, faded.
Here we are, end of the last rep. And 4:34 per K. So whole workout was between 4:30 and 4:40 per K, which
I haven't seen you all day.
I've been moving.
How many miles was it?
I'm at like 7, about. Always nice to have a fan. And settling into a 10-minute cool down. I think all of it came out to be a little bit harder than I planned for or wanted. Managed to stay in zone 3, but I think too much of each rep was at sort of the top end of zone 3, and that's probably fine. Again, I think the middle of my zone 3 is actually a bit gentler than my true LT1 would be if I were to get that measured based on past race performances and so on. But it's just not really worth risking going over the intended effort level and not really training the energy system that you're trying to get faster at. I think it's better to be patient and just say, okay, I'm gonna run at 155 beats per minute or whatever, and over time those paces will naturally come down. But if you overshoot it every time, you're not really gonna get more efficient in that zone. You're gonna get better at what you do every time, but that LT1 range is particularly good for staving off fatigue when racing the marathon. So the specificity matters, and you won't lose anything from going a little bit too easy unless you're not able to bring the paces down enough to map onto your goals. So hopefully if I just stick with this over the rest of my base period, be a little bit more careful about the effort, meaning bring it down a little bit, and then, you know, do my 5K spring season and then return to these efforts in the fall and start to draw them out and introduce them in my long runs. Hopefully I can get that pace down to sub 3 hour marathon pace, which is about 6:50 per mile or 4:15 per K. And I think running in the 4:30s now, or let's say even like 4:40 per K, if I'm hitting the right effort, I think that seems perfectly reasonable to be able to do that between January and a November race, as long as I can stay healthy and consistent. So, and hit some checkpoints along the way. Thanks for watching my steady workout and listening in about using heart rate as a proxy and LT1 and all these things that I have a pretty limited understanding of, but I think I know enough and have enough experience to be able to dole out advice that you should take with a grain of salt. And you know, keep watching other content, keep watching exercise physiologists and coaches and comparing all this to your own training. Don't take anything I say as a mandate, but these things are working for me and producing results year over year. So I feel comfortable enough sharing what I'm doing, and I have a degree of confidence that, especially for a novice runner, you can improve by taking some of these things into your own training. So good luck out there. Thanks for joining me for the first workout of the year. Cheers.